Good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to call to order the Cabarrus County Board of Commissioners work session for June the 3rd, 2013. For those of you in attendance, please remember to silence or put on vibrate any mobile devices that you might have so they don't go off during the meeting. We appreciate everybody here. We got a good group here today. Commissioners, you'll see the work session agenda, including a few changes. So at this time, I accept a motion to approve the agenda with the changes.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. First item for discussion is an update from Cabarrus County Schools and Kannapolis City Schools on the QSCB project. Will Crabtree and Lynn Whitkey are both here. Good to see you both. I'd say long time no see, but you know that wouldn't really be the truth. So.
You want me to start?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Don't have a lot to report. We're finished with all of our projects. I have one more pay app on the roof, and then the last pay app for the retainage, and then we'll be completely finished. At that point, I should have an idea if there's going to be anything left over.
Do you think you're going to have a little bit? I mean,
I thought I might, and I still think I do. I don't think it's going to be a great deal, but I think it's going to be some.
do you think there's enough to do another project?
No. It might get supplement. It'd have to be awful small.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Commissioners, any questions about the Kannapolis City Schools projects? Okay. Mr. Whitkey?
Yes, ma'am. Good afternoon. Thank you. We're going to talk about the milestones at this point, and just to bring you up to date, we have construction going on still at very minor things at Central Cabarrus High School. We're just finishing up the punch list. We have one. We're going to process one of the pay applications, and then we'll be down to the final pay application. So we hope that by the next time we see you, that we'll be done with that project and completed with the payouts for it. The gym addition is going well at Northwest High School, as long as we don't have too many more nights like last night. It's hard to enclose buildings when it's pouring, but we're doing well, and the renovation inside is going well also. The kitchen hood replacement, we are going to bid that next week, and so we should have on our next report for you where that comes in as far as dollars and cents, and hopefully we'll be under our bids, or under our bids bid estimate, and be able to proceed with construction. The boiler replacement is the same. We're going to be bidding that project on the 18th of June. That project we anticipate to be underfunded, and we'll be looking at that. One of the things that changed is that, and it's to the good, is that the gas company has informed us that they will be providing natural gas to that location in approximately a year. So we're going with a dual fuel burner, simply because you have to do that to be prepared to go to the gas in the future. So that increased the cost a bit in the process. But in the long run, we're ultimately going to be on gas, which is a much more efficient fuel than fuel oil. The weight room is just under construction. We did bid that project, and we were successful in that, as you know, and we are underway with that project. The practice fields are really sort of on hold at this point. We've gotten information, we'll talk to you in a moment, about the one of the other roof projects at Jan Freeze. That project came in over budget, and so it is part of our amendment process that we have before you. The electrical vaults, that work at Cabarrus Central High School is complete, and we're just waiting for the final invoice to be processed, and it will be done. The electrical panels, there's some work still. We are waiting. Duke Energy is one of the entities we're waiting for in terms of reports from them, because that's part of the contractor's package that they will give us. So as soon as Duke gets the information to the contractor, we'll be able to close that project out as well. As I mentioned, the roof project at Jan Freeze did come in over budget. We are looking at a couple of different scenarios. It looks like with movement of funds, we will be able to afford a portion of that project. We most likely will not be able to do the entire project. There'll still be one wing that will not have a new roof on it. And the remaining projects on the list are, as you can see, postponed. So, are there any questions?
Commissioners, anybody have any questions on those projects? Okay. Mr. Crabtree, are you finished?
I'm finished.
We appreciate you coming. Mr. Wick, he's not finished.
No,
so-
that's right. We have other things.
I'm gonna leave.
Are you
We will
okay?
let you, yes, we will let you leave. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item we have is concerning reallocation request from Cabarrus County Schools for the QSCB project. Mr. Wick.
Yes, I think, Kelly, you're going to join us. Ms. Klutz will join us on that and help speak to that issue.
Document are we speaking from? The letter? So what we're requesting to do is to take all of the remaining funds out of the projects that are 100% complete and pull those back into active projects. So the projects that that are currently in need of funds would be the J and Freeze project, the J and Freeze roof project, as we just mentioned. There's dollars being moved into the Northwest Gym addition, and then dollars being moved into one more,
Weight room.
the weight room. And so these are just taking the dollars that the projects are 100% complete. There will be a need for other budget amendments once these other projects are complete, but we're just cleaning up and moving the dollars where we need them right now.
Commissioners, any questions?
I was at a meeting one time with the schools and was told that if the project could not be fully funded, then it doesn't need to be done, or it needs to be reduced to the scope of the amount of money. And it didn't come from y'all, because y'all were certainly promoting it. It came from school board members. So I'm trying to figure out, what do we do at this point in time when these projects don't have enough money? Based on those statements, how do we deal with those?
So this will go in front of our board today,
Mhm.
and so our board will have the same option to approve or deny the budget amendment request. This takes both boards to move
Right.
forward to move on this request. So if the funds are not approved, then we will simply not issue the contract.
Okay. And if it is, then
Then we'll move on.
we know what the answer was some months ago when I was told that. Okay.
Well, and just like with Kannapolis, I mean, we knew that they would, just to
No.
point one out, and I know you know that, but
Yeah, I
Mount
mean,
Pleasant
that's,
Elementary AC
Mhm.
replacement has $230 left over. They're going to have to move it somewhere, so.
exactly. And
That's
that's
the-
not my point. My
All
point
right.
is, when a project was designed and it was going to go over what the funds were allotted, we were both told in the meeting, if they do not have the money for the project, either you scale down the project or you just don't do the project. My question then becomes to the school board, is that going to be something that's a policy that they're going to follow or not? And I guess we'll find out tonight.
And you said that on J and Freeze that you are scaling down the project
We are.
as in response to that.
but-
There's a wing.
Excuse me.
I mean, I haven't seen the bids. I don't know anything about your bids coming.
I understand, Madam Chair. We are presenting that to our board this evening, and we will work through that. Part of the change in that project was that because we didn't get it out to bid and really couldn't get it out to bid before now, the new energy codes, which were really approved last year but are now in place, have kicked in. And so we were trying to address the new energy code, which was far and above the original scope of the project. And that's a decision our board will have to struggle with this evening, is if they want to stay to that standard, then we are going to have to scale the project back, because we didn't anticipate that being in place at this time, so.
Any other questions?
Chair Poole, could I just mention that to be able to issue this contract, we're going to need to do another budget amendment for at least $86,000 just to be able to get the base. And so we'll be
point.
coming to you again if our board approves this, just to be clear.
When you
Thank
say a base, I'm confused as to
A
an
base
additional
bid.
86,000 for a base.
There's a base bid taken, and then we had some alternates taken. So the base bid is over the available funding.
Ah.
And so that's the,
And we didn't know that, the bid were not in and when we prepared this work, so.
So it's going to be at $86,000 more than the $44,000,
There's.
$45,227.
Currently $155,000 left in that account if you approve this particular budget amendment, and then we'll need 86,000 more.
Okay. Can you help me where you're, so I'm just going to make certain.
So the base bid's $242,000.
And we'll get to this as we get to the end, but it sounds like this might be one that, instead of putting on consent, we want to put on action so that we can get feedback from what the school board will do today.
I agree.
That's where I think from this discussion, I think that's where we would go with that.
Okay.
So, okay. Sounds good. Do you have any other, I don't have any other things for you on this agenda, is that correct? We do?
yes, we did.
Sorry. Let me look
Was
at
that added as a, yep, okay.
But not for me.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Yes, we were going to talk about the planetarium, if you
Okay.
recall, Madam Chair.
Let's go, I didn't want you to get up, I wanted to go
Right.
ahead
If
and cover
that's
all your
okay.
things, because you have a school board meeting to go to, so.
Yes, I do. Yes,
That's why I was
ma'am.
trying to make sure we covered everything, so
Thank
I'm
you.
sorry. Let's talk about the planetarium.
And
Which
what
page is
this,
that on? 60? Okay, page 60, commissioners.
just so you know, initially I sent over a very, very large narrative from the consultant that I thought was, I'm sure, informative to people who understand a lot about planetariums, but I thought it was hard to understand just to get a sense of what it was they were proposing. And there were many things in the narrative that I felt were completely beyond, any imagination that we were going to do. So what I tried to do was distill that down into a simple spreadsheet for you all to see. And it's pretty much, the spreadsheet, the way it's created, is pretty much what we saw in terms of priorities for the project. And with that, I guess I'll just, I don't know if somebody asked me the details of one of these items. I know a little bit about them, but when you get into the technical portion of it, I'd have to refer you back to the consultant's document. But I can tell you that items 1 and 2 are sort of what they suggested as being, pretty important. The very first thing will get the equipment operational and to the point that it can be used. They actually had it on, so we know some of the lighting works, but not all the lights work. They have a piece that's called a tower that a unit goes up and down on. That device is bent, so we have to get a new one of those. And some of these other things. So the minimum charge of the $12,006 is for their work and just getting it operational. And then the remaining portions of this are sort of additive features that they would recommend.
Okay, so it goes in, and this is ranked in order 1 through 7?
Yes, as
As
best
far
I
as-
could discern it, yes.
What school board thinks is the ranking, or what the consultant says is the ranking?
Well, really, it's
Or
what, both. It really is both, a combination. But we haven't officially gotten an opinion one way or the other from the board.
Okay.
We just simply said, here's the information, take a look at it, and they knew, we were sending it to you.
What is the cumulative cost? I see cost and,
A cumulative is just adding one thing. So in other
I
words,
see.
item 2 is the addition of item 1 and item 2. That's the
Okay, so
cumulative
that way.
cost. So the total of it all is 165.
Okay. And this is something that we were going to talk about with one-time funds, if we decided that we wanted to fund the project. Planetarium seating, is that replacing all the seats that are in there now?
It is, not being that experienced in this, as we looked at the seating, he actually knew that it had been replaced. And then when we have some interesting historical photos right in the planetarium. So he looked at that and he was right. There's a somewhat specialized seat that has, it looks like a standard theater seat, but it has a neck bracing, if you will, so you can put your neck back to look at the entire dome. and otherwise you'd have a very stiff neck at the end of the evening. So that was something that I didn't realize until we compared the pictures to what we have there. Right now, we just have what you would typically find in an auditorium of ours or a small theater.
And how close are these amounts to actual quotes?
I would say they're pretty close. If you're, and by the way, I did want to mention, I spoke with, I believe she's the retiring director of the facility in Salisbury, and she has used this company for many years, but she had used other companies prior to them, and she felt that they not only were the most cost competitive, but they also seem to know a lot more than any one of their competitors. They work internationally. They have an excellent reputation. So,
How long would this upgrade or upfit take? Has there been any time frame given of how long it would take?
no, it depends a little bit, of course, on what work we would want to do. I think the initial upgrading is fairly simple and straightforward. I think that when we get into, like, item 2, where we're actually replacing a console and that would take a bit of time, because not only getting the parts and all, but then the actual physical work would take some time. So I would say, at least several months. And that was one thing, I was trying to reach him, and I wasn't able to get him prior to, because I did just pull this together last week, and I wasn't able to get him online to ask him that very question. But I know when he talked, he felt pretty comfortable about saying that the first piece was fairly straightforward. They could do that. But in terms of the other projectors and the console and all, that would take some work.
Okay.
But you would have to put this out for bid.
I believe, yes, we would.
So, I mean, this is a good estimate, but
Mhm.
it would still go out for bid, and
Yes.
hopefully
Yes, ma'am.
folks would bid on it, so. Okay. And for today, that's just information for us to decide if we want to move forward with the planetarium project, as a couple folks have suggested that we do. Any other comments or any questions that you have at this time?
I got some questions.
Sure.
Mr. Wicke, I don't know if you have the answers to these now, or if you want to just jot them down and get them to me later, or get them to us later, but I know we were talking about digital versus whatever it has right now. This implies to me that it's not digital.
Correct.
Okay.
It remains.
Is there a difference between the updated information, digital versus projector? I mean, if we're using projector, to me it implies antiquated equipment. That means antiquated information that's going to be displayed up on the planetarium. I can't imagine that, but I just want to make certain if we're doing if we're going to upfit what we have, do we have the latest and greatest in information?
Right, and that's a good question. I do know that some of these items under number 2 would be enhancements that would allow us to do more and to add on things in the future. I don't believe, and I think you're right, I think it still remains an analog or non-digital unit as well. But again, it depends on really how far you want to go with the equipment and what your really intended end use is. But I will have him answer that question. Because
You'll find out.
Sure,
Also,
absolutely.
what runs it? I mean, there is no, there's no indication of a computer or some sort of system. And I don't want to be, well, seems like you just put in film and it runs off of film, which I don't think that's the case. There's got to be some sort of mechanism to get the information
Sure.
displayed. And
Yes.
if it's a computer, is that something that needs to be put in here?
Uh-huh.
If it's not a computer, how does it get the latest and greatest and the more accurate information of the stars and the constellations, or whatever else is being done? In regards to the surround system or the sound system, 5.1 I don't know if that's what is capacity for that facility, or is it new? I mean, I know that at the gym, you've got the latest and greatest, and all I remember seeing is DRS, digital something, so I don't know if that's 5.1. I don't think it is. I think DRS is higher.
Actually, the sound system that we have is 5.1.
Okay.
Which there are higher grades than that. I'm not sure that that would be cost-effective for a facility like this. Knowing very little about the operation of planetariums, I would assume that this $22,000 control console probably is the computer mechanism. I'd be interested to know that.
Yes.
I would guess that would be the case. But a little, I'm not sure how that relates to the LCD projector. I'm assuming that's for things other than the actual display of the constellations. But, if you were talking about a higher grade projection system, then you'd be talking more like $45,000 instead of $4,500. I was curious about, what is the seating capacity of the planetarium?
I counted them.
Approximate.
I'm going to say just in the neighborhood of 50, I believe.
50?
Yes.
And so if I understood you correctly, the seats that were in there originally probably were the right kind, and the replacements were not?
Right. That's
Yeah.
the way it appeared.
Well,
I counted 53.
I was just curious why they might have done that. Of course, we don't know
No.
over the years, but I would think that would be an important item. The planetariums that I have been to, unfortunately, I find those seats very conducive to naps when you lay back. So maybe that's why they changed them.
One other question is,
Yes, sir.
typically in a contingency, it seems like 10% is a typical amount that you put in there. I would just want to make certain it's 10%. I don't know why this would be special, that needs to be higher than 10%, but want to make certain whatever the number is we're talking about is the actual number and it doesn't grow. So in regards to the contingency, if it needs to be greater than 10%, then that's fine, but we're not talking about building something out of the ground, so that I don't think 10% is necessary, but if you'll kind of ballpark that, Mr. Whitkey.
Will do.
And we would know, once it's put out for bid, we'd have hard numbers to look at. I mean, if the pleasure of the board is to move forward and at least get this, get the numbers solidified so we actually get bids, and we can, ask them to go ahead and put it out for bid and itemize it out, and then we could look at it and decide, what we really are interested in funding. So that's a thought. I'm just saying,
Yeah.
we'd have some
I
hard
personally
numbers
think it's a
and
great
you-
project, and it's a great opportunity for the school and for our school system, and as well as for the community. So I would fully support at this number or take this out to bid.
I will offer that, and I don't want it to be a wet blanket at all, but I think our board is very concerned about the expenditure as compared to all the other needs we have. And I guess that's one of the things they're going to struggle with as well, because there's, as you know, many places we could spend this amount of money. And that's why I was cautious in terms of saying I'm not sure how far down the list we want to go, because there are many, many things we need in the school system. And so that's something I offer to the board.
I agree with Commissioner White. I would like to move forward with it and actually get bids so we have, clear numbers of what we're looking at. And I think this is a good start, but going out to bid, I think we'll have the real numbers, and I think it's a good project, and we've talked about it for months and months, and I'm ready to go ahead and get something done with it.
Okay, well, the options that we have is that we can suspend the rules today, and we can make a motion to request that they put it out for bid and then bring that back to us for further action. We can wait till we meet in 2 weeks when we're going to vote on the budget, and we can include something at that time. So what's the pleasure?
How old is this mechanical projector?
It's pretty old. It was working, and that's about all I can say.
It was
for
working, that's about all. How hard is it to buy parts for?
Oh, interestingly,
You can
this-
get all of them
company actually has 5 of these sitting in their
But
warehouse.
it's still obsolete and outdated.
Oh, definitely, it is. I wouldn't kid you in that regard. But because they have been replaced in so many other locations, this particular company has quite a stock of these units and the pieces that go with them, so.
But in upgrading it, you can't upgrade it to no more than it was when it was originally installed.
There are some add-ons, and that's why I think you'll see some of these additional constellation projectors and things. Those are all add-on features that they've come up with.
But as far as this projector, though, it's still going to produce the same thing it did when it was originally installed.
That's as I understand it, yes, sir.
So it's not updated,
No,
except
it-
to a certain point.
To a point.
Yeah.
Well, when you say updated, is the information that you're displaying is updated?
Uh-huh.
It's just the manner in which it's displayed.
That is correct.
I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah, it's-
if this was put in when the school was put in the 60s,
Mid-60s.
it's not going to show the constellations in the 60s. It'll show the constellation of 2013 or 2014.
Right.
It's just, the display will, right.
Yes.
So it will be updated information, it's just the mechanics is old and the machine's old.
Right, and as I understood it from just a brief discussion with Eric, gentleman who put this together, the level of detail is much greater today in terms of what we have available. So that is the one benefit with updating, the information, is you're going to get a lot more information on the constellations, on star-specific. And one of the items, and I haven't been to the planetarium in many years, but one of the aspects of this was that I believe he said the current one just shows the star patterns creating the different parts of the heavens, whereas a part of this would actually give the line locations, the line connections of all the stars. And so it's just a better visual aid is available today than it was back in the day.
I would imagine that basic unit that's there probably would continue to be effective for a very long time. I know that we have 35 millimeter projectors that have been in operation since the 1930s that have been maintained, upgraded over the years, and basically have become obsolete because changes in the industry. This information that's going to be displayed there doesn't change as rapidly as the movies do every week. So I can see how that it would be still functional and
Yes.
effective.
Yeah.
One question just back to the seating capacity size, how does that 50 seats match up with class sizes and school bus capacities?
It would typically be, a couple of classes.
So maybe like
classrooms.
2 classes and 2 buses if they were coming from other parts of the county?
Yes, sir.
Well, but depends on that. Buses
Well,
can
and who
carry
you-
65 students.
So,
So, I mean,
One
what you
bus-
really look at would probably be, I'm just guessing, this elementary school would send a bus full,
right,
and it would fill it up.
right, which might be 2 classes.
Which might be 2 classes,
Yeah.
it just depends. Class sizes are anywhere from 18 to 38,
Right.
depending on which class it is. And that's why there's an average. And you can correct me if I'm wrong.
No,
but
you're right. You're right,
I
I'm sure.
think I'm pretty close on it.
Yeah, I would,
So, you would have probably two elementary school
Yeah.
classes could come. But if you're at one of the bigger elementary schools, for example, and you have 6 of the second grade and you want second graders to come, you'd have to do 3 different times to get
right,
all
to
of
get
them.
them, get them all
Which is,
in.
that's no big deal. That's what they deal with all the time on
Yeah.
doing field trips and
And this
whatnot.
is a lot of money, but I imagine if we took a look at other educational field trips that students might make, whether it be Discovery Place or other places, this is probably a pretty good investment, I would think.
My one question, Commissioner White, would be, you mentioned the digital. Do you want to get more information?
No. I'm fine.
On digital, or do you want to go?
Based on if we got projectors in this country that are still running from 1930s and they're running fine, then I would think this projector, if it's either a whole new unit or it's a refurbished unit, it'll run just as good as I don't know what sort of automobile equipment, Mr. Burge, you may know, Commissioner Burge, of some good old equipment that's still running. But yes, I say you go with the projector, and I like this idea about the Blu-ray.
can buy automobile equipment back to the first one they ever made.
So, this time.
I'd move
if
to
you wanna
suspend the rules.
Suspend the rules. yes.
Second.
Then we have a motion to suspend the rules. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of suspending the rules, say aye.
Aye. And I'd make a motion requesting the school, in conjunction with Mr. Whitkey, to submit this for bid to see what the numbers are as it relates to the planetarium. Cabarrus Central High School Planetarium, placing a bid out there.
And we would like the detail in the bids to
Yes.
match up with what you have, so that if one area is really high, I mean, just to pick one, if the seats are really high, we might not do the seats, but we
Right.
might get it so that it functions. Okay.
Yes.
Is that good enough information for you to be able to proceed?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, we have a motion. Do I have a second? Yes, sir.
I'll second that. But I also want to say, this is something unique that's in our school system, and, I really just, I don't like the idea of it just sitting empty. And, I know you guys have heard me say before, is when I was in high school at Central Cabarrus, it worked, and I took the astronomy classes and really enjoyed that, and it seemed to be a demand for that, and I really would hate to see that just sitting empty, and I think it's something that we can really take advantage of.
Well, believe it or not, I can remember going on a field trip there myself when I was in school. The one question I would have, we're talking about funding this with one-time money. Is there some of the one-time money from this current budget has been
We have fund balance available that should
set
fund
back?
this.
Right, that's what I
Once we
thought.
would get the bids.
Right.
Just as in the next budget cycle, we'll have fund balance available to look at one-time projects.
We hope.
So, well, anything that we currently have would still be
Right.
tracking right along in the same. So, at some point, we won't have that option. But
Right.
this is one, as you said, we've talked about for a number of months. Okay, any other comments? I have a motion, I have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. So if you'll get those, whenever you get those, obviously get that back to us, and we'll be able to look at the bid.
Absolutely, Madam Chair. One thing I would just say is, unless there's any objection by the board members, we would probably bid this as an entire package. We'll get the individual prices, but we would want one contract to deal with for all of it, so that's fine. Thank you very
We
much.
definitely would agree with that. It's not big enough to have a whole bunch of contractors out there, but
No.
we would like to be able to see it broken down so we can make sure what we're buying.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, the next item, Mr. Downs, you're going to handle about the Human Services Agency.
As you remember, last month, you set the public hearing to move forward with the consolidation of and creation of the Human Services Department. We pull in the social services, the current social services department, and the transportation department, and aging services as well, would be moving together. They are physically moved there, and some of the changes are already in the process of being made. We've met with, we gave all of the employees the opportunity to meet with us to discuss any potential changes. I think we had about 30 out of total of 250, 300 employees came. There were no negative comments, just there to find out information. So that was good. The CRC is moving forward and actually working, and Kathy Mowers here is the program administrator. She says that is working very well as well. The other program administrators are on board. They're aware of what's happening and moving forward. So what we would ask you to do on that evening, you would hold a public hearing. You would consider discontinuing the current Social Services Board in its current form. You would create the Consolidated Human Services Agency, and you would assume, as your board would assume, the ultimate responsibilities of the Human Services Board. You would then be able to name the Human Services Director, and then also, as you see fit in the near future, you could create an appointed board that would be an advisory to you that would handle the monthly meetings and bring suggestions back to you along with the staff on how to move programs, make improvements, that type of thing. So If you have any questions, I can answer them. If not, we'll be holding the public hearing.
Any questions?
And the board could be selected, the advisory board or advisory council could be selected within a short period of time.
Yes, sir. As soon as you want to do it.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
But we would need to get applications.
We would,
and-
yeah, we would start the application processes as soon as it's created.
So in essence, if we voted on this in June the 17th, a board could be put in place within 60 days. I mean,
Yes, sir.
it depends on the application
Sure.
process, but within
That-
60 days.
That is correct.
Yeah, I think we would need to discuss the makeup of that board, if there's certain agencies maybe that we'd want, or not agencies, but certain areas that we want represented on there, kind of like you have with the CVB, Health Alliance, they both have restrictions, so we need to decide what those restrictions are and be able to move forward, so.
Right.
And I'm sure you could come up, give us recommendation to us to look at.
Sure.
So, any other questions on this? I know we've talked about it a few times.
Right. I just have a comment. I know we've discussed this in detail and at length in several meetings, but just so everyone is aware, the DSS board did vote 3-2 not to support this. However, me being the liaison to that board, I understood their concerns. However, I personally do believe that it's going to be the best for Cabarrus County and for the Department of Social Services and ultimately the Human Services Agency. And I want everyone to understand that the services will not change. I do not believe that the service times or the customer service will change at all. If anything, I think it will become more efficient and ultimately save Cabarrus County money.
Okay, any other comments? Okay, the next item we have is Jonathan Marshall, you're going to talk about resolution supporting turn lanes at 601 and Flow Store Road East.
We were, we were contacted by the division office of NCDOT about an updated resolution. The board had passed a resolution in October of 2011 supporting turn lanes at this intersection. They would primarily serve an expansion at the Bockham's Nursery site, but if you know the intersection of Flow Store Road East and 601, that's a very common path to get to Flow Store Road itself, so the turn lanes would be of benefit on 601 anyway. The cost of that has gone from an estimate of $250,000 to $375,000, so they've asked for you to update the resolution. I also added the word east because we, of course, it said Flow Store Road in 601. That's a different intersection, so I fixed that part of it.
And who would be paying for the turn lanes?
NCDOT out of contingency money.
Okay, the way the resolution reads, it says DOT is requesting that Balcom's Nursery pay for this turn lane at a cost of approximately $375,000. So is that DOT contingency money, or is it Balcom's Nursery is already
DOT,
advanced? Or?
Bockham's Nursery is required to do this, so I imagine it's a contract between the two, but I'll get that cleared up before we meet.
I just want to make sure we have the right
Okay.
information in the resolution.
I've sent this resolution back to Mark Morgan, who requested it. It's really the exact language of the previous one, other than the change in the amount in that east, but I'll double-check that with him.
Okay. Any questions, Commissioners? Previous one, Commissioner White, you were the one that signed.
Yeah, and I remember it. It was, at that point in time, the Department of Transportation was going to do it, and if I'm not, I think it was Mr. Balcom that owns the facility. I'm almost positive it is, because I spoke to him, and he was talking about this would actually help him expand his business and move a lot of his business from Charlotte up here. He probably used to have an outfit down there, but it'll help him. And also, it's a very big safety issue down in that area because of the lanes, how narrow the lanes are, or the number of trucks that he's using coming in and out of there.
And I met with the Bockhams in a meeting that EDC had set up for that exact purpose. They have facilities, of course, near UNC Charlotte, and they've had facilities in other states even where they're moving some of those operations. And this allows them to go, if you've seen their facility, they don't actually front on Flow Store Road East. This allows them to do another phase to Flow Store Road, put in a second entrance there, and do some expansion.
Okay, thank you. Any other? Okay. Next item we have 4.4. Steve Langer and Matt Ford are here to talk about Proposed firefighters' prayer to be displayed at the Emergency Services Memorial Site.
Good afternoon. The request we have comes from our Cabarrus County Firemen's Association to display the firefighters' prayer at the memorial site that's being developed by the law enforcement site. So I have Matt Ford here, who is our Cabarrus County Firemen's Association treasurer and also the chair of the memorial site committee.
Here today to ask permission from the commissioners to have the fireman's prayer placed in granite on the proposed firefighters memorial. We're at the point where we want to order the granite and want to get permission for the firefighters prayer to be placed on the monument.
I'll just add to that, the location, I sent you out an email last week. We were preparing the walkway and the slab over there yesterday, or last week for that. So it's right next to the law enforcement memorial. The firefighters came in and volunteered to provide funds and in-kind with the Mount Pleasant masonry class, I believe is
Central Cabarrus.
Central Cabarrus, excuse me. Central Cabarrus is going to come in and actually construct the monument. Be foresighted. It'll have the firefighters' prayer on one side, along with the names of the firefighters and public safety officials, whether it's EMS as well. Then it'll have the logos for the firefighters and for EMS on each side, and then it'll have a dedication plaque or a recognition from the firefighters that they had donated the materials for this. So, and it's again at the far end of the building down here. Just wanted you guys to see it, feel it, and see that the prayer, that is one of their big items that they would prefer to have on there, since it is a memorial to their fallen firefighters. So.
Any questions or comments?
I think it's very appropriate to be put up there.
Thank you, sir.
I agree. Okay, thank you. Next, Susan Farrington is here. Let's talk about a budget amendment.
First up, we want to talk about the Adequate Public Facilities Fund. If you remember, back in January, we discontinued that in our ordinance, subdivision ordinance. Actually, since August, under the direction of our county attorney, we have not been collecting the fee. So we'd like to clean up the fund and make since we're no longer going to be able to collect these fees, make our revenues in line with the budget. So this is a budget amendment to update our budget, to make it match the budget, and also update our project ordinance to go along with the budget. Both are attached for your review.
Commissioners, any questions? Okay. And then we have you for the next item, Capital Reserve Fund.
Capital Reserve Fund. Capital Reserve Fund is one of the funds that continues year after year, and without cleaning it up, it just becomes so large. And this year, I decided to clean it up and get rid of some of the older projects that were funded many, many years ago, and just have the current projects that we're working on where the contributions to the funds came from the Capital Reserve Fund. The Capital Reserve Fund is there as a collection spot to collect money and then disperse it out to the capital projects funds to fund additional projects. So it's not really, expenditures not actually come out of that fund. We don't cut checks out of that fund. We just send money to other funds for capital projects, county or school projects that are non-debt related. So this just cleans up our project ordinance and our budget to get only current activity. Sort of more of like an administrative type.
Okay. Commissioners,
proposal.
any questions? This is the time of year for budget amendments. Okay, if there are no questions, thank you very much. Next, we have the Health Insurance Fund. Pam Dubois, are you going to talk about that one?
This will be our annual cleanup, but we had quite a few different changes through our health insurance fund this past year, so we had several estimates that we need to adjust. We entered in a contract with the Water and Sewer Authority where they're actually utilizing our health clinic, so we were receiving revenues from that facility. We've had about $108,000 worth of insurance refunds this year that we're wanting to increase the budget, and the general fund made a contribution of about $375,000. We also implemented the health savings account this year, and we had been told we thought we'd have about 10% people sign up. We had a much substantially higher, signed up for that plan, so we need to make an adjustment to that for about $196,000. And we also added the biometrics, which will take us into the future years, and we had an increased cost of about $36,000. We believe that our claims will come in, but to ensure that, based on what all activity and all the changes we've had this year, there's about $201,000 worth of fund balance that we're appropriating, and hopefully not to anticipate to utilize any of those funds. So we're trying to put all the line items in a line and being able to adjust them to what the actual expenditures are. And I did receive the numbers for this coming fiscal year, so we may need to make an adjustment to the health insurance fund for next year, juggling some money between the HSA and the HRA. But we do have those official numbers as of this afternoon, so we'll be looking at that to see if there's anything we need to make prior to the 16th of adjustments for it.
Okay, so we may have some additional item at our next meeting that has those numbers.
If there's any, there should not be any additional change in the dollar value of the health insurance budget. I'm going to shift it between line items.
Right, okay. Commissioners, any questions for this budget amendment? Okay. Next, we have Ann Wilson come up to talk about our waiving of the fund balance transfer to capital reserve fund policy.
Right. As you know, your policy says that you will transfer the excess of 15% over your 15% of your budget to your fund balance to the capital reserve. What we're suggesting is that perhaps we waive this again for 13. Once you move them, you can't move them back, and there are quite a few uncertainties with the lottery proceeds, sales tax reform, and so what we'd prefer to do is wait on this.
And I know we did it last year, and we may have done it the year before, where we've amended the policy. So, any questions concerning this action? Okay. Thank you. And next we have Kevin Grant and Kyle Bilfer to talk about scrap tire disposal contract.
What we're presenting this afternoon is a 3-year contract to continue to have U.S. Tire Recycling, which is located at 6322 Poplar Tent Road in Concord, continue to be the county's disposal facility for used and scrap tires. We're actually very fortunate to have this facility in Cabarrus County. There are only four facilities in North Carolina that are currently permitted for disposing and recycling of used and scrap tires. 44 counties in North Carolina send their tires to this facility. 44. There's also the states of South Carolina, Virginia, Tennessee, Georgia, and West Virginia send tires to this facility. Now, obviously a smaller percentage, but it just shows you how few facilities there are that do this sort of work. Cabarrus County is number 12 in the state with regards to total amount of scrap tires generated. We're also very fortunate that we're one of the lowest cost in the state to dispose and recycle scrap tires. The state average for recycling a ton of scrap tires is $103 a ton. This current contract that's being proposed would be $66.69 a ton. Just give you kind of background on the scrap tire program in North Carolina. Each county is responsible for providing for the disposal of scrap tires located within its boundaries. A county shall also provide for at least one scrap tire disposal site for that county. In terms of funding, an advanced disposal fee is charged at the point of sale for new tires and collected by the North Carolina Department of Revenue. They in turn distribute 70% of the proceeds directly to each county to fund this scrap tire management program. No money comes out of the general fund for this program. County proceeds are distributed on a per capita basis. The remaining funds that they have are used for special cleanups for different cleanup sites and to assist counties that are underfunded in this program. And as far as I can recall, we've never applied for one of those grants. Another thing is just the solid waste department's responsible for coordinating the scrap tire reimbursement program. What we do is we ensure that for any tire merchant that sends their scrap tires either to us at the landfill or to U.S. Tire, making sure that they have their scrap tire certification form properly filled out, basically stating that these tires originated in Cabarrus County. And then we, like I said, we manage that program and we distribute the funds directly to scrap tire merchants and to U.S. Tire Recycling. Any questions you have regarding the subject?
Okay, Commissioners, any questions? So this is a 3-year contract,
Correct.
and each year it's up to 650,000, or is it
That's
615,000 for
total,
the 3 years?
I put, that's for the total for the 3 years. I put that number down, that's basically the revenue that we received over the last 3 years from the state in terms of scrap tire reimbursement. That's not to say that, like I said, the last couple of years, I think we've been about 400,000 over the last 3 years, I think what it was. I put that number, like I said, just as a number to put there, just to approximate, because obviously we do not know how many scrap tires are going to be sent to that facility.
So, but it's about 200,000 a year is what
Correct.
you're
That's what we average that we receive from the
estimating.
state, correct.
I just want to make sure that that dollar amount was for all 3 years and not
Correct.
per year. I want to make
Yes,
sure
and
that
we've
was
been,
clarified.
as far as I could look back, we've been overfunded in this program.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, next we have Ben Rose and Kathy Maurer are going to come and talk about HCCBG funding plan.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm just going to do a quick intro. Kathy's going to share a little more specifics with you, but we're here to present the Home and Care Community Block Grant funding plan for fiscal year 2014. These are funds that we received. They're a mixture of federal and state dollars, and we received them to provide a variety of core services to the senior population. There's about 18 or 20 types of different services that we can provide under this grant, and basically there's a committee that's set up to kind of assess the needs in the community for senior services, and they make a recommendation on what services should be funded and what funded services should be funded and at what level. And we've submitted the plan to you. It came late last week, so we do apologize for that. However, the gala was reviewing the plan a little further and putting some modifications to it. So hopefully you have the plan in your agenda, and Kathy's going to talk a little more specifically about the services that the committee is looking to recommend for funding, and then we'll be happy to answer any questions.
As being said, the Home and Community Care Block Grant monies do consist of funds from the Older Americans Act. Approximately 55% of this is federal and 45% is state. And the county match that we do is around 11%. As we also spoke, it does finance a range of services for, really we're looking at our at-risk older adults with a priority given for those adults who are at risk of abuse or neglect, members of minority groups, and those with greatest economic needs. The plan basically looks to set overall priorities and the course for our aging population. It also is the basis for the receipt of our block grant funds as well. And it also defines the roles of our local agencies in providing the services at the county level and making sure we meet the needs of the groups. The advisory committee, which is a committee that you as a board appoint, is made up of course, service provider designees that provide the services, as well as Cabarrus County residents that are 60 or over. And basically what we do as a committee, we look to see what services we think are most needed by our older adults in the county, and then also we look to determine how much money needs to be allocated to those services and what agencies will be providing those services. So this year, the advisory committee is suggesting that the services that we look as a part of our funding plan would be, of course, our aging transportation, our in-home personal care services, congregate meal services, home-delivered meals, information and assistance, housing and home repair, adult daycare and adult day health, senior services or senior center operations, personal assistance under our consumer-directed program. And those are the services at this point that the committee has recommended that we fund for this next year. They did, at the direction of the board, to look at where we have been providing nutritional supplements for a part of the plan. Those monies are now being rolled into our congregate meal sites because we are no longer providing those nutritional supplements like Ensure and Glucerna and those types of things.
Just to add to it, as Ms. Mauer said, the board is made up, they're your appointees, but they're made up of staff, they're made up of seniors, and they're made up of providers as well. And they, based on the funds that the county receives, and the permitted uses of those funds, they set up the programs, they set up the services that they would provide throughout the year. It is less funding actually this year, just because of federal and state cuts. And then last year, during the transition, we asked Ms. Gayla Woody, right?
Right.
Yeah, from COG, to sort of be the administrator of the program. Now that we've had our transition year, we are back taking that over. So Ben and Kathy will be, I think Ben will be the official administrator as a Human Services
As
Director.
the
but
lead
Kathy-
agency,
Right,
right.
yeah. So we will be back as a lead agency in charge of the administration. And in addition to that, hopefully next year, we'll have some more input to give to the board, to the appointed board, and you, as well as commissioners. Staff is in the process of creating a strategic plan for the senior population, so that we evaluate the current services that we have, and are they sufficient now, and as the bubble of baby boomers begins to come through here. So we're looking at current services, potential new services, and are there, if it's not government provided, then are there vendors out there that are available from the private sector that can, from the nonprofit and the private sector that can provide these. And then we would create a database, such as the CRC is doing right now, to provide information and funds to those who need them as we move forward. So that'll be some good information for this committee or this board to use as they make their decisions in the future.
And just to tag to the lead agency role that we're assuming for next fiscal year, really the role of the lead agency is just to oversee the advisory committee. They are really the heart and soul of what we do and how they plan. They're the ones that are really assessing the needs in the community. So we need to definitely give a kudos and a shout out to them for the work that they do to get this plan together. Really, the lead agency is just overseeing that and then doing a lot of paperwork. As I've signed off on some papers this week, and we're seeing that. But it's the advisory committee that really is the working part of this function. So they've done a great job getting this together.
There's a whole lot in this plan.
Yes.
Been trying to work through. Can you tell me the total amount of the block grant funding and the total amount of the match? I'm looking at our page 75. I'm not certain if that's the right page. It's your page 4-10.
Okay.
I don't know if that's the right page or not. I just want to make sure I have the right page to tell me.
Okay. The total would be $743,999, which is the block grant funding, and the local match is $82,665.
What page number are you?
Well,
Do you have
I'm
a
at
page number on the bottom or the top or something
No,
that we can reference?
it's DOA 731. It's this one right here. That should be that should give you your totals there at the bottom.
Okay. Megan, do you know what page that is in our, does it have a page? 62? Okay. Okay, Commissioners, questions that you have concerning this block grant funding?
The local match that we contribute, is that a requirement of the federal and state grants to receive?
Yes, it is.
And then how long is the Home and Community Care Block Grant Program been in existence?
I want to say, I think it came in this format probably in the early 90s, if I'm not mistaken, or 89. There you go. I went too far.
1989.
And then it became a process where it really did become community-driven more and more each year. But yeah, it was a way to target, because again, it covers only specific services. There's about 18 types of services it covers, and that's it. So what it does is it says, of those services, take that committee and you determine where your need is in your community. So it really gives a lot of local flexibility.
Okay, now is there a number of clients attached with this, or is it it's strictly based,
Basically, we have certain units that, if you'll notice in the plan, there are units that you say, we are going to provide X amount of numbers for units, and then we also equate that out to the number of clients that we're going to serve.
Okay.
So those are estimates at this point.
And some of the services that it does fund, you have to realize it is a supplement service in a lot of ways, like the congregate mill sites, the senior center. It's just given us additional funding to help offset the cost of that because it's a covered service.
Correct.
And you could have, the same person could get served in more than one way? Is that why you use units?
Yes, you could have someone, say, that is attending a congregate site. They could also be receiving information and assistance to point them to different, resources and those types of things. Normally, you would not have an individual, say, receiving adult daycare and also receiving in-home aid services, because a lot of them are individual, just one client would have that service.
Other questions, commissioners?
The local match is a match all the way across the board on the services. It's not, so that what I'm looking at on this page that doesn't come up very well on the screen is that our match is will assist in transportation, in-home, congregate, the whole home delivered, care advisory, all the way down.
Yes, sir.
Now, when you said percentages, I must have misunderstood you because I thought you said feds were 55%, state is 45%, and the county's 11%.
Right, that is the match. I did get those percentages this afternoon from Gayla because I did email her because we wanted to have that for you.
Well, that ends up being 111%.
Basically, the allocation that we get, that set amount, that is composed of 55 and 45. And then we match that allocation at 10%, basically.
Okay.
Does that make a little more sense?
So the grant itself is 55, 45.
That's right.
And then the
When
county
we add
is-
our part in, that comes up to the 100%.
Right, okay. Because it is a mixture of
They
federal
do,
and state funds.
yes, 55% of 89%. Yeah,
There you
that
go.
makes
That's-
sense.
there
That's a
you
good
go.
question. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item that we have is some general budget discussions. And we have some handouts for you. Ann's going to come back up.
While they're,
And Parth.
and Parth are coming up, just as I mentioned earlier, we've created a list, a working list of your questions or requests for information. Parth has retrieved that information and has now put it into an electronic file. I will review it, and Ann and Pam and Jonathan and I will review it in the morning and then get it out to you first thing in the morning. So, so we're moving forward with that. What we're going to do now is we've talked a little bit. You gave us some direction on a few items that you wanted to either add or delete, and we made those changes, and we've created a new 5-year plan to give you an idea of what the net effect that those additional services or programs would do. So Ann's going to talk to you a little bit about that, and then we'll answer any questions you have.
Okay. The first item, if you want to look at the green sheet, that'll tell you what's included in this 5-year plan. Oh.
Please.
Where is this? Do they have this?
I can look at it.
Well, the first item, the 31,000 we discussed the other night for KCS.
Let's do it. Let's just take a 5-minute break.
Good.
That's a better one. And then we'll get the handouts and be ready to start back up.
Good plan.
Great.